Joining us now, and he's excited about the midterms coming up because the tide is turning. Corey Lewandowski, the former campaign manager for the Trump for President campaign. He's now an informal advisor to the president, and he is also with the vice president's political action committee. That's a hard money pack, so he spends a lot of time with the VP. He's also an author and a writer of the book, Let Trump Be Trump. Go ahead and buy that now. Great read. But he's got another book coming out that's a blockbuster. It's going to be a New York Times bestseller guaranteed, called Trump's Enemies. And he's got to name names about all the weasels running around the West Wing and the deep state that he is outing in order to move ahead President Trump's agenda. And he's joining us now, live from New Hampshire. Corey Lewandowski, great to have you, man.
Good morning, John.
Okay, what a great speech the president made yesterday. I know you saw it. You know, Corey, he starts out by apologizing to the American people for the debacle, for the clown show the Democrats put on, which I thought was a great opening because I was there live, and I was only 4 rows back in the media, so I was right there front and center, and I was kind of shocked by it, but I thought it was great. And then he also apologized to Judge Kavanaugh and his family for having to gone through the nonsense. And a lot of polls showing, Corey, now that the Democrats overplayed their hand, that's backfiring, that Trump voters are fired up. What are you seeing on the ground?
Well, John, what you said is exactly right. Look, this president came out yesterday and apologized to Judge Kavanaugh and his family for what he endured, and we know the mainstream media will never apologize. The accusations, the way they attacked his character and went after his reputation was unprecedented, and you see no apologies from anybody in the mainstream media. You know, these people doubled down, and it's such a hypocrisy. When it's a conservative, it's one thing. When it's a liberal, it's another. We've seen it many times now, no matter what the issue is. Whether you catch liberals lying, they say, well, we thought it was the truth. Whether they're using language that conservatives couldn't use, they say, well, you know, that was when the person was young and we stand by them now. Whatever it is, it's always a double standard. So what the president outlined yesterday, when he was announcing Judge Kavanaugh as Justice Kavanaugh, was, you know, something very different, something that only he has the ability to do, which is to bring the attention back to where it should be, which was the personal and inappropriate attacks that Judge Kavanaugh and his family received from not just the left, but also from the mainstream media. And the president has the biggest microphone in the world, and what he did yesterday was there. It was the right thing to do. And I can tell you, John, I've said this now many, many times, there are multiple wings of the Republican Party. There's kind of the establishment wing of the party. There's the insurgent wing of the party. There's the Trump wing of the party. Everybody right now is fully united for 4 weeks from today because they have seen now what the left wants to do, what they're capable of doing, and what they will do if they take back the House of Representatives, which is talking about impeachment both of our president and, moreover, of Justice Kavanaugh already. So the Republicans are united, they're fired up, and you're seeing that in the polling data, and this is going to be a much closer election than the mainstream media wants to give us credit for.
Let's get to the House. I just had John McLaughlin on. He was saying that it's a very tough fall right now, even with the Republicans being more motivated. He said 28 days is a long time. People start waning. They got other things to do. And he said it all depends on if the Trump voters come out. If those Trump voters come out in the midterms, the Republicans have a chance to hang on. If they don't, they're not. How do you get them out?
Well, look, what we see is the president has a hellacious schedule. He's on the road almost every day now doing campaign rallies. He's back to Iowa today. We saw him doing an official event in Florida yesterday. He was in Topeka on Saturday. I mean, his schedule, he and the vice president just on the road everywhere for the next 4 weeks. The schedule is set, and he is driving his people out because he and the vice president know exactly what is at stake in this November election. And look, John, what I remember, and you remember, it was 2 years ago at this time, was right after the Access Hollywood tape came out. It was almost to the day. It's just over 2 years ago. And they said the race is over, Hillary Clinton is going to win, 400 electoral votes, and every single prognosticator in the country was counting Donald Trump out. And he grinded, and he worked, and he outworked his opponent, and he won, you know, more electoral votes than anybody expected. He got to 307, and Hillary was at 232, and it was a blowout election. So, 4 weeks in politics is a lifetime. What John McLaughlin was saying is exactly right. If the Trump voters, who are tired of the lies of the mainstream media, tired of the Democrats lying to them, If they decide that they're going to show up on Election Day 4 weeks from today, not only are the Republicans going to hold on to the House, they're going to expand their majorities in the U.S. Senate.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just went over the races, and I'm predicting the Republicans are going to pick up 5 seats. And if you're right and Bob Hoogan wins in New Jersey, it could be 6. I don't see that, but I think they're going to pick up 5. Corey, now yesterday I was at the swearing in for Judge Kavanaugh. As I said, I thought the president really was at his top of his game. He did a magnificent job. And the loyalty that he showed to Kavanaugh, when he introduced Kavanaugh, I was like right there. Kavanaugh had to fight back crying. I mean, he really had to fight back the tears because this president has stood behind him. I mean, let's just be frank with each other, Corey. You think there's any other Republican who would have stood behind him?
Absolutely not. Look, I am fully convinced that if we didn't have Donald J. Trump as the President of the United States right now, if another Republican had nominated Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court, they would have pulled his nomination. They would have caved to the pressure because they just don't have the strength that this president has. This president has seen what the false accusations have done to him and his family and stood by Justice Kavanaugh to a point where everybody said, there were many people, as you know, Johnson, widely reported, saying you should pull the nomination. Judge Kavanaugh should withdraw. And we did not see, for about a 2-week window, we didn't see all of those people who Judge Kavanaugh served with in the previous Republican administration coming to his defense. What you saw was a small group running ads for him, and then Donald Trump got up, and you were there, John, at the United Nations, and he gave a blistering support for Judge Kavanaugh, for what he has endured, and outlined the case to the American people that this man is a good man who deserves the promotion to sit on the high court. He and Lindsey Graham and Susan Collins and a few others, Mitch McConnell, right, stood fast when many of the others would have folded. But if it wasn't for President Trump's leadership and his support, his unwavering support, Judge Kavanaugh likely would never have been confirmed.
And there would be no Supreme Court justice right now, and we'd be going into the midterms, and the Democrats would have won. You're right. Any other Republican would have pulled the nomination. They would have caved. They would have buckled, and Trump did not. In fact, he doubled down like he always does. Every time he does it, he ends up winning because he's right. And so he just has to get past the nonsense that goes on in the media. Let's shift for a minute. Rod Rosenstein, the president, yesterday saying he's not going to fire him. I assume that meant temporary. I'm not sure. But I just got to tell you, Corey, I was there last night, and one of the most sickening things I saw was Rosenstein walks in the room like some kind of hero and starts working the crowd, like shaking hands like down the hope line. And, I was a couple rows back. I don't like the guy. I can't stand him. I just found it to be icky. Like, it isn't even his deal. Like, just go in, sit down. You're the Deputy Attorney General. I get it. But I look at that guy, and he is the epitome to me of what has gone wrong in the West Wing, White House, Deep State, Department of Justice. Nobody trusts him. How is this going to play out with this guy?
John, I don't know if you've seen the article. It just broke about an hour ago on Fox News, and it says, let me just read you the first paragraph. 2 senior FBI officials told the Bureau's top lawyer they believe Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was serious when he discussed secretly recording President Trump and invoking the 25th Amendment to remove him from office last year. This is exactly what the case about Rod Rosenstein is, right? He has unequivocally overstepped his bounds as a Deputy Attorney General. I am fully convinced a man of his serious nature was not kidding when he talked about invoking the 25th Amendment and literally having people wear wires. And now the former chief lawyer, the top lawyer, the general counsel for the Federal Bureau of Investigation said 2 other officials have come to him and reported the exact same thing. Look, this guy is the deep state. He is an enemy of Trump. He is an enemy of the American people. Look, there has to be a repercussion. He has not moved forward yet on prosecuting Jim Comey or Andy McCabe, who has a criminal referral from the IG's office. He has not done anything to bring Lisa Page or Peter Strzok into accountability. We have seen Bruce Orr, who still works at the Department of Justice under Rod Rosenstein. We know that Bruce Orr, who was the number 4 person, is the one who took the false dossier that was paid for by the Clinton campaign and brought it to the FBI. He was demoted, but he still stays in the department. So Rod Rosenstein is the person who signed the Pfizer application to spy on American citizens on U.S. soil. Everything that is antithetical to our Constitution, everything that says you can't do, he has abused his power time and time and time again, and I don't understand how long he gets to keep this job. But just today, the top FBI attorney, the general counsel to the FBI, said that two senior officials said that they were, quote, serious. They believed that Rod Rosenstein was, quote, serious when he recommended invoking the 25th Amendment and wiretapping President Donald Trump. Look, to me, you can't make this stuff up, and there are too many people of corroborating information that all say the same thing about Rod Rosenstein. I don't see how he stays in his job much longer.
Well, obviously the president's going to keep him for 28 days. There's no question about that. I think he figures, let's just get through the next 28 days. He's got other things to focus on. But the fact that he came in the Kavanaugh hearing yesterday and worked the line like he was some kind of victorious bureaucrat or running for office was just appalling to me. I mean, I don't like the guy, so, look, I'm biased because of the things that you just said. I don't trust him. But one of the fears that Trump supporters have that I really want you to address is that if they win the midterms, if they hang on and maybe hold the House, gain 4 or 5 seats in the Senate, it's a big victory, then Trump supporters are concerned that nothing will change within the White House. Nothing will change with Trump's enemies. That the same thing will go on, that the only way you're going to get changes is if they lose. If they win, can you still get in there and clean house? Answer that question.
John, the answer is yes. And if the Republicans win or lose, historical precedent has said that after a midterm election, there are changes in an administration, whether that's cabinet members, whether it's staff members in the building, whether it's senior members of different departments. That historically has happened. I think will happen again, regardless of the outcome of the election. That will happen. But let me predict what's going to happen, in my opinion. If Rod Rosenstein leaves in 4 weeks or 4 months or 2 years or whatever it is, he will go out and he will do exactly what Jim Comey did, exactly what Andy McCabe did, exactly what all these guys do. They go out and they write these books, they get these massive advances, and then they say about their time in the White House or their time in the Department of Justice and how they've done everything to save America from this president. That's what they're going to do. That's my prediction. I'm certain it will happen. And I am certain there are other people who are inside the administration or have served in the administration who are going to do the same thing. This is the game plan now, John. We've seen it for 2 years, right? People go in there, they serve in a capacity, and then they go out and they write a book. Look, Jim Comey's book sold a lot of copies. It made Jim very, very wealthy. And that's what these guys want to do. Andy McCabe's book comes out in early December. Andy McCabe, who was the deputy director of the FBI, who was fired for, amongst other reasons, lying to the FBI under oath on 3 occasions. He was fired for that. His book is coming out because they all profiteer off of Donald Trump. And what sells in the book world is salacious stories about Donald Trump. We've seen it now with Fire and Fury and Woodward and all the other, tabloids that have been out there and published. But my guess is this is exactly what Rod Rosenstein's going to do. He will use his perch as the number 2 person at the Department of Justice to when he finally leaves, whether he's fired or he quits, to go and write a book and just, be scathing against this president, because that's how these guys stay alive, and this is how these guys stay, in the public arena. And it's a terrible, terrible thing, to be honest with you.
So, Corey, with the new allegations out now that the Rosenstein comments that he was going to attempt to tape the president, and then go with the tape, set him up, and then go to the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment and get him out. Now you got 2 FBI, as you said, 2 FBI senior officials saying they believed him and they thought he was dead serious. They reported that to their counsel, James Baker. He thought it was serious. McCabe thought it was serious. There was a plan underway. Now with this new information, are all bets off? I mean, why doesn't the president just fire this guy now?
Look, I think you're exactly right. I think the president wants to get through this election cycle. He doesn't want anything to distract. The Republicans have momentum on their side. But I do think you have to look long-term at the ability of Rod Rosenstein to stay in that position. Look, if Rod wants to leave the position, he can do that at any time. He can resign if he wants to. But I think you have to call into question, does he have the ability to continue in his capacity as the Deputy Attorney General based on the information that we're hearing from other members, other senior members that served with him in official capacities in the Department of Justice or at the FBI. And if they're saying, if they're accounting for what McCabe said to be true, that should be very troubling to everybody. And we do know unequivocally that Rod Rosenstein signed one of the FISA application renewals, which allowed them to continue to spy on American citizens on U.S. soil. That full application has never been made available to us. The president has not unredacted that. We need that. We need to see that. We need to see the 302s, which are the FBI's notes after they talked to Bruce Orr at the Department of Justice to see what's in there. And we have to understand what the insurance policy was to keep Donald Trump from being elected that the FBI was talking about, and what role, if any, Rod Rosenstein had in that. Because as the Deputy Attorney General, he had the right to sign that FISA application, and from what I understand and what is becoming widely known now, that FISA application was riddled with mistakes, and it was based on the false premise of a fake dossier, and that last renewal was actually signed when Donald J. Trump was the sitting President of the United States. And the American people deserve the right to see what was in that renewal application that Rod Rosenstein signed.
So would you recommend to the president that Rothstein goes November 7th?
Look, what I would recommend to the president is declassify all of the documents. Let the American people decide and see what has actually transpired. The FBI's credibility, because of what Jim Comey and Andy McCabe and now James Baker and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page have done to that organization, is just devastating. It will take decades to recover from what they have done to that organization. Trying to use their positions, people with authority, people with badges going after American citizens, spying on American citizens because they didn't like the political affiliation of their opponents. This is everything that our country has been against since its inception. And guys like Peter Strzok, who are the head of the counterterrorism unit, had more ability than anybody. He was the one who botched the Clinton email investigation. He's the one who led the team that was called Crossfire Hurricane that said that, hey, there's nothing to see in these extra 600,000 Clinton emails that were all part of Anthony Weiner's laptop. And he's the one who said, hey, let's go after Donald Trump. He's the one who led that investigation. We've seen it now with the text messages between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, and they were at least at minimum complicit with what Jim Comey and Andy McCabe and Jim Baker and potentially Rod Rosenstein wanted done. And the question is, John, and this is a very, very big question, how high did this go in the U.S. government? We know that the director of the CIA and the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and others were aware of this spying going on domestic soil against U.S. citizens. But exactly how high did it go? This is the biggest untold story of the last 2 years, because this could lead right up to the very top of the government.
And so there needs to be an investigation, which then leads us to Jeff Sessions. What happens to Jeff Sessions? I mean, he's not doing anything. He's certainly not launching any of these special counsels to investigate what you allege could be the biggest scandal in the United States history ever, spying on people for political gain, all the way up to CIA and DNI and everything else. Where's Jeff Sessions in this?
Well, look, this whole investigation has been by and large turned over to the IG, the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, to find out if there's been any wrongdoing. And we've seen some of that report already because it's been released publicly. The report that recommended the number 2 person at the FBI not only be fired but charged criminally. We're waiting for that to occur. We're waiting to see what happens to Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and Jim Baker, the general counsel from the FBI. We're waiting to find out what happens to Jim Comey, because it is very possible that Jim Comey is brought up on charges of potentially perjury in front of Congress, leaking of classified information. Even though Jim said he didn't think it was classified, that's not an excuse. We know that he gave his notes, his work product, which he was not allowed to do, to the law professor to make sure that got leaked out to the media. There's been no accountability at anybody, at any level of the government for what they've done, which was they tried to influence the outcome of a U.S. election because they were Clinton supporters by and large, and they did not want to see candidate Trump become President Trump. And I don't understand where the accountability is and why it hasn't come out yet.
November 7th, are we going to clean house or not?
Boy, I hope so, John. I really hope so, and I hope for the president's sake that he has a team that is focused on helping him achieve all of the results which he's been able to do by and large almost single-handedly. If you look at what this president's been able to accomplish, whether it's 3.7% unemployment, the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans and Hispanics, he's done some of this without the help of his staff. He's done it in lieu of his staff, quite candidly. And we've seen in the Woodward book where the staff tried on multiple occasions to stop him from doing things and trying to stop him from being successful. But he's persevered. He's gone on and done things at historic levels. Just think for a second if he had a staff that surrounded him that actually wanted him to be successful. Think of how much more he could accomplish. He's done so much already, but there are still people who don't want to see him be successful. There are still people who serve in the government, whether they're bureaucrats, unelected officials, or people who have taken positions that didn't support him in the campaign and are still trying to stop his agenda at every turn. And for all of the success that he has had in the first 2 years of the administration, I can only wonder how much more he could have had if he had the right team around him supporting him every step of the way in all of these government agencies.
Well, the first thing he needs to do on November 7th, Corey, is bring in Corey Lewandowski to help straighten this out. Because, my goodness, you're right. You look at all this president has accomplished in 20 months. It's breathtaking. And he did that in spite of his staff who was undermining him at every turn, taking things off of his Resolute desk, hiding things from him, taking his cell phone, couldn't go to websites, not divulging information. I mean, it's almost criminal what they've done. This is his own staff. This is the people that are there to serve the president's agenda. And they were nothing but an obstacle trying to stop what he was doing. And he still got all this accomplished. I mean, it's an amazing feat. You can only imagine in the next 2 years what he could do if he has a House and he has a Senate and he's got people in there that are actually backing and advocating for his agenda rather than doing everything to stop it or stall it. Unbelievable. Corey Lewandowski, thank you for being with us. Read Corey's book, Let Trump Be Trump. Got another great book coming out, Trump's Enemies. That's due out in November, I believe, is it?
It's going to be right yet, November 27th, I think we are, John. So it's going to be a hot book, I promise you.
It's going to be hot. Don't miss that. Corey Lewandowski, thanks for being with us. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
John.
it.